Hello, welcome to my YouTube lesson series, The Concepts of ICT. In today's lesson, we are going to discuss about HTML language. So it is going to be the second part of the HTML lesson series. In the first part, we discussed about the HTML basics, the structure of a web page, then the basic tags used for headings, page paragraphs, images and hyperlinks like things. So this lesson is going to be an extension on that lesson series, the HTML. In this lesson, we are going to discuss about the lists in HTML, how we insert lists in HTML, and then about the tables in HTML, how to insert a table into a HTML page. So first, we are going to discuss about the lists. So when we discuss about the lists in HTML, there are three types of lists. We call them ordered lists, unordered lists and definition lists or description lists. So these are the three types of lists that we can find in HTML pages or in web pages. So even in word processing software, we can find these types of lists. Except for definition lists, we can find ordered lists and unordered lists. So what is an ordered list? In an ordered list, there is an order in the items. We can order the items in a particular way, 1, 2, 3, like that. There is an order. Even if we use A, B, C, so there is an order in ordered lists. But in unordered lists, you won't find an order. There is no order in that particular list, unordered list. When you use bullet points, we call it an unordered list. Hope you understood the difference between an ordered list and unordered lists. So let's see how we create these in web pages or HTML pages. So as we discussed, there are three types of lists: ordered, unordered and definition lists. So as HTML is a markup language, we should be using tags to define these stuff. So for an ordered list, the main tag that we use to define an ordered list is OL, ordered list. Just remember the name, then you don't have to by heart all these tags. Just remember the name, then you can just use that tag, ordered list, OL. So this is the main tag that we use to insert a list, ordered list actually, an ordered list into a HTML page. So within a list, what do we have? We can call them list items. So for that also we have to use a tag. To insert an item to a list, we need to have a tag. So that tag is list item, LI. That is the tag that we have to use to insert an item into a list. So this is the tag that we use to insert an item to a list. Hope you understand the concept. Let's just put some countries into a list. So at the end of that item, particular item, we have to end that tag as well, LI tag. That is the end of the first list item. To insert another item, we have to start another LI tag. So if that is the end of the list items, we have to end that particular list, that ordered list. To end the ordered list, we have to end using that tag that we use to create the ordered list, the OL tag. So that is how we create an ordered list in HTML. So by default, an ordered list will be shown as this: 1 Sri Lanka, then 2 India, 3 Singapore. So let's say that we need to change this ordered list to some other format. Let's say we don't need to show it using 1, 2, 3, we need to show it using A, B and C. So to do that, we need to use an attribute in the OL tag. The attribute that we use to change the type of list is we call type. So that is how we change the type of the ordered list. So for this attribute type, we can use capital A, then it will be displayed as A, B and C, and even we can use simple A for this type attribute, the value as simple A. If we use the simple A, it will be showed as A, B, C, like that. And even the Roman numbers, we can use simple I, which represent the Roman number 1. So if we use here the simple I, so if we use the value as simple I, it will be showed as 1, 2 and 3. Even there we can use the capital I, which still represents the Roman number 1. Then it will be displayed as 1, 2, 3, like that it goes. So hope you understood the concept of this ordered list in HTML. That is simply how we create an ordered list in HTML. So now let's see how we create an unordered list. Still the same concept. If we use the OL tag for an ordered list, what should be used for an unordered list? UL, unordered list. So this is the main tag that we use to create an unordered list. Other than that, the same concepts are applied as in an ordered list in this concept as well. So to insert a list item, we use the LI tag, list item. Then as in ordered list, we can put the items within this LI opening and closing tags. Then at the end, we close that unordered list as well. So as in ordered list, we can find some types of unordered lists as well. There are 3 types of unordered lists. In ordered lists, so that we can use number 1, capital A, simple A, and in Roman numbers we can represent the lists. And in unordered lists, there are 3 types that we can find to represent the lists. Those are the circle, disk and square. So as in ordered list, we can use this type attribute and represent them. So this is how we define the type of the unordered list. So we can use as the value, other than this circle, we can use the disk and the square. So that is the basic idea that you need to have in creating an unordered list in HTML. Now let's move on to the next type of list, which is called the definition list or the description list. This is a very much different list compared to the ordered list and unordered list. In definition lists, we find 2 types of items. We don't find list items in these. A definition list is something like a dictionary, where we find a term and then the description of that particular term. So a definition list is something like that, not exactly a dictionary, but it is something like that. So we find a term and a description within a definition list. Just remember that. So the same concept as in ordered list and unordered list. Here, to create a definition list, we use the tag DL. So this is how we start creating a definition list. And within a definition list, as we discussed before, we find a term and a description. So put the term within a definition list, we use the tag DT. So this is how we create a term within a definition list. For example, let's use the term pencil or a pen. At the end of that term, we have to close that DT tag. Then to put the description, we have to use the tag DD. Just remember the word description. So that is how we use the tags DT and DD. At the end of the list, we have to close the definition list, where we have to use the tag, the closing tag of DL. So this will be displayed in a web page like this. Pen, the term, the description will be shown in the next line, and it will be a bit indented. It will be shown like this. So this is how a definition list will be shown within a web page. Hope you understood the concepts of these lists. So as we learned, there are three types of lists: ordered lists, unordered lists, and definition lists. To create an ordered list, we have to use the tag OL, and within an ordered list, we have to use the tags LI to represent the list items, and to create an unordered list, we have to use the tag UL, and still within that unordered list, we insert list items where we have to insert where we have to use LI tags. And to change the type of these lists, we have to use the attribute type within the OL or UL tags. Hope you got the concepts of ordered lists and unordered lists. And a definition list is a bit different to the other two, ordered lists and unordered lists, because it represents not the list items, but it has a term and description. Hope you understood the concept of these lists in HTML. Now let's move on to tables in HTML. There are many occasions that we have to use tables in HTML. To represent values within a page, we simply have to use tables. So how do we create a table in HTML? Before creating the table, let's use a structure, particular structure to create within the page. Let's draw a table. Okay, let's try to create this table structure in an HTML page. So in this, I have represented the headings of the table using H and the data using the letter D. So simply H1, H2 and H3 are headings of these tables, table columns, and D1, D2, D3 and D4 are data used within that table. So now let's try to create this structure in HTML. The first thing that you have to remember when you create a table within an HTML page is you define the table using table rows. You just define what you find within a row, whether it is a data, whether it is a heading, whatever the thing, you define it using a row. First you state what you find within the first row of the table, then at the after the first row you then define what you find in the second row. It goes on like that. Okay, now let's try to create this structure in an HTML page. Okay, to create a table in HTML, the basic tag that we use is the table tag. The tag is table, simply table. So as we discussed, we have to define what you find in each row of the table. First, we are going to define what we have in the first row of the table. To start defining a row, we have to state that we are going to define a row. For that, we have to use the tag table row or simply tr. So that is how we start defining a row in a table. So the first thing that we have in the first row is a heading, a table header. For that, we have to use the tag th, table header. Then you say what is the content in that particular cell, in that particular header. The content is h1. So at the end of that content, we have to close that header th. Then we'll move on to the next cell. There again we find a header. So again we have to use the tag th, the element th. So that is the end of the second cell. Then we move on to the third. Again it is a header. Again we have to use the th element. So that is the end of the first row. To end the row, we have to end the tr tag. Okay, that is the end of the first row. Then we are going to state that we are going to start the second row, defining the second row. To say that in HTML, again we are going to start the tr tag. So now we are defining the second row of the table. So what do we find in the first cell in the second row? It is a data. So to define a data in a table, we use the tag td, table data. And the data we find in that particular cell is d1. We end that td. Again it is at td. The content is d2. Again the next one is a d or a data, but that cell is a bit different to the others because it has used two rows in creating that particular cell. For d3 value, it has used two rows in that particular column. So it has spanned in two rows. So how do we say that in HTML? So it is a data. So simply we have to use the td tag. I'll move on to the next line. td. Then we have to say that it has spanned over two rows. For that, we use an attribute called, if it has spanned over two or more rows, we use the attribute row span. And the value for that attribute represents how many rows it has used or over how many rows it has spanned. Here it is 2. And then the value d3. And that is the end of that particular cell, and that is the end of that particular row. Now we'll move on to the next row, the last row. Again we have to start a row, table row, and that cell also a bit different because it has spanned over two columns, not in two rows but in two columns. To do that, again we have to use the attribute called not row span, but here it is col span. and the value again is 2 columns, and the data we find within that cell is D4. That is the end of that data. And if we move to the next cell, we have already defined that cell in the previous row. So that is it. That's the end of that particular table, and that's the end of that particular. We didn't end that row, we have to end that row, and again we have to end the table. So that is what you need to know about tables in HTML. Before ending this, there's another thing that you have to remember. If we write the code as this, table and table headers and table data, we won't see the borders of this table. To display the borders of the table, we have to use the attribute called border in the table tag. So remember that you have to use the border attribute in the table tag, otherwise you won't see these borders of this table. You just see the data structure like this: H1, H2, H3, D1, D2 and D3, something like this, and D4. You won't see any other border. So to display the borders of the table, we have to use the border attribute in the table tag. For the border, you can use whatever the value, whether it is 1, 2 or 3, that represents the size of the border. Here we are going to use just the value 1. So that's it. That's how you simply represent a table like this in HTML. Hope you understood the main concepts of these tables in HTML. And in this lesson, we went through the main two types of data: lists and tables in HTML. In lists, we learnt about 3 types of lists: ordered, unordered and definition lists. And then we moved on to this table tag. There we discussed how to insert a table in HTML, and especially you have to remember how to do these stuff, how to create a cell which has spanned over 2 or more rows and a cell which has spanned over 2 or more columns. There we used the attribute row span and col span. Hope you understood what we learned in this lesson. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because if you are interested in ICT and if you are eager to learn more things about ICT, you have to subscribe to my channel. Thanks again. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned everything I have discussed in this lesson. If you have any questions, you can use the comment section. And see you on the next lesson with some more interesting facts. Until then, goodbye.